Welcome to the Raiders 2025 free agent preview. I'm JT, the soon-to-be Hall of Famer Eric Allen, and today we have cornerbacks and wide receivers. And here we go. Yep. I think two areas with the Raiders, two spots that have to get picked up. The Raiders have some money to spend. They got some good players on both sides of the ball, but I think upgrades are coming.
Yeah, upgrades are coming, but it's all about competitiveness. Mm-hmm. And this secondary has to find a way to not only cover guys, but get the ball. I think that's a critical area that we need to continue to build on. Jacorian Bennett, who's under contract, and it really provided some impact. And I thought he's really grown from his rookie year. And I think right now he's our best cornerback and most complete guy. He's going to come up, he can make tackles. He's not going to make the big misses and errors. So it's very important that we first look at who we have before we start to go outside.
Yeah, you're bringing us to John Spidtek, as we've been talking about on all these shows, and he was a part of as an assistant in the building of that Tampa Bay Super Bowl roster that was very strong on the back end.
Yes.
And had a core of linebackers that were really good, Tom Brady, and then good wide receivers there. But I think what's interesting, EA, as we've talked about this over these shows, is Chip Kelly's on the offensive side. Pete Carroll and Patrick Graham are on the defensive side.
Right.
And I think they're going to vet everyone in the draft coming off the combine. But free agency, you've got to thread the needle and hit home runs with the guys you're bringing into the building because Pete wants competition and he wants to win now.
He wants to win now. And the last month or so since Pete's been here, it's been about evaluation. You got to evaluate what you have in this building first and foremost. That's the most important thing. So all these guys are getting evaluated at the cornerback position. Are they the right type? Are they the right size? Do they have the right mental makeup to be a kind of football player that's going to excel in Pete's system? Even though they were here before in Patrick's system, now they're going to be asked to do a little bit more, maybe zone, cover 4 base stuff. So it's going to be a really interesting time here leading up to the free agency period to see if, and the more I look at it and what I used to see with Pete in defense, I know he wants his corners to be a little bit bigger, right? So maybe DCAM, who we drafted last year, is going to have a better spot this year. So those are things to look at free agency-wise. I think this defense is going to be really dependent upon the front, but us guys in the secondary love the fact that we have so many great guys who can rush the passer, so that gives us opportunities to make plays on the ball, and that's where that competitive nature is going to come out.
You know, with a player like Nate Hobbs, who's available now, and he plays the slot, and he's a really good player, very good player overall, but he's been injured a lot. And some coaches just don't want to reward guys who are hurt with new contracts unless they can play a year or two and play clean and not get injured, but injuries happen. When it comes to Jack Jones, he's under contract here. I don't know what they think of his contract and the length of it, but he's made a bunch of plays, and he's an important piece to this team. But Jacorian Bennett is under contract on a rookie contract type deal that is very valuable to this organization because, as you mentioned, his strength, his height, his size, and he gets better. But another player that was injured last year and lost out on so many late season opportunities to get better.
Yeah, because we saw that rookie year, and of course, most of the time when you're a rookie at corner, you're going to struggle at some point in that season. It's going to be, maybe the first 4, the middle 4. You're going to hit that rookie wall at some point. And he struggled a little bit. But I thought, man, more than anyone, he really blossomed in preseason. And when the season hit, he was playing some really good football, making plays on the ball, tackling at the line of scrimmage, up or off. He was doing a really good job of just kind of taking that next step and being a really good, solid cornerback. But when you think about Hobbs, same situation. When he's on the field, man, he produces, but he's not on the field a lot. And what could hurt him, actually, is the style of play. If you go to a situation where people want more linebackers on the football field opposed to that nickel guy, that could really hurt Nate because Nate's not a guy who's going to go outside.
There are many players under contract.
Right.
Got to add some players here in this building at this position. You have the draft, but we're talking about free agency there. As we go to the wide receivers, what fascinates me here is Bowers puts up wide receiver 1 numbers.
Yes.
Jacoby's one of the top 2 wide receivers, number 2 receivers in the league. But from everybody I've talked to, the Raiders need to add a taller, a possession wide receiver, someone if you go one-on-one in the red zone and he's not doubled, you can give him a 50-50 ball. There's a couple of good draft players eligible here, and not many after T. Higgins was franchise tagged in free agency.
Yeah, this is going to be because many people wanted T. Higgins on that football team because he provides all those things that you want in that special receiver, where either he's a 6'3" or higher guy, or he has that tremendous leaping ability, or he has just that dynamic speed. It's always great when you can get all those, styles of play in one person, but that's not the case this time. So the Raiders are going to have to really find out where they can find that mismatch guy. Where you can say, if he's one-on-one, it doesn't matter, I'm throwing him the football. And that's really the point we're at right now, because we have one of the best tight ends in the league. We have one of the best, number 2 receivers in the National Football League. So we're looking for that added impactful piece that can sway defenses to bring the defense to them, so everyone else will have their opportunities in those one-on-one situations, and that'll also make the quarterback so much better.
Trey Tucker comes around as a player who wants to be here and wants the ball. It's tough to get him the ball because last year we just couldn't run the football and then play action wasn't available. It just didn't help Trey Tucker. But he could just explode if it's the right quarterback, the right scenario there. Jacoby Myers, as we see this. DJ Turner, as a free agent, has been a good player. That's been on this team going forward. And then the rest, there are a lot of players that are borderline practice squad to starters, guys who had depth here. So with Jacoby Myers, I was very impressed. You and I would be at the Torch on game day, and his family would come up to us, and Dad, and he was just a pro, just awesome. There was never any drama. When the Raiders weren't winning games, he was front and center at his locker. Just thrilled that he's under contract. And again, he gets better and better every year. Yeah,
man, this was a career year for him.
It was.
With all the changes at quarterback we had, he was still able to put up career numbers for himself, very competitive. He's kind of set a standard for himself. And I think a lot of that is owed to some of the other players who were here, before he was even here. He was continuing to get better each and every week. Just love the fact that he's kind of embraced his role and understands that, hey, when it's time for me to show up on a third down or first down that's critical, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be there. And I love that energy. I love what he's about. And I think he really believes that right now he's a Raider.
Yeah, I look at the free agents available. There aren't many. It's just an aging group. It's one of those years. We're seeing in the advent of these superstar wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, the elite ones, you're just not going to let them get away. So they're never going to get to free agency, Jamar Chase. Then you want, who are those diamond in the rough guys that you can keep and you can draft and then re-sign them and have them? And then look, the best scenario for the Raiders would be to have a young receiver that they had a chance to franchise twice.
Right, yeah.
Where you want to get a deal done, but you look around, like Brock Bowers a couple of years from now could be that player.
Right.
Where you look at and say the whole league would want a player, but he's our player, and we can give him another contract or franchise tag him here. It's important, but I don't want to put this scenario and make it too crazy, but the quarterback situation is going to have a lot to do with the style of the receiver that you want with Chip Kelly. Because they're going to want to run the ball more than they have. They got to take care of the running back position. They got a couple of wide receivers. And what is Chip going to want to do on 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 7 that the former O coordinators didn't do?
Right. But JT, what did Coach Carroll tell us right in that seat over there? He was like, I want to have a program that's going to surround the quarterback with great talent, with great opportunities to be successful. This is going to be a team-led offense where we help the quarterback until that quarterback is able to make it on his own. I thought that was a great point that he made. That means you're going to try and bring in quality players that help him at every single level. Right now, the middle of the football field, we can dominate the middle of the football field with Brock and Jacoby. We have to get the running game going. The missing piece is really that deep ball. The one when we're at the Torch and we're thinking, man, this is going to be the game where we're going to start off, throw the ball deep. We're missing that player where it doesn't matter what down it is. It doesn't matter what situation it is. If he's lined up one-on-one, the quarterback is comfortable and confident enough to be able to check and throw him the rock. That's the piece that we're missing on offense.
The offensive line has to be better to throw the deep ball.
You're right.
Just need more time, and you got to run it with an offensive line that's got to be improved. When we come back, Jason Horowitz will join us, the voice of the Raiders, as we continue with the 2025 Free Agent Preview Show.
Commitment to excellence. That's what this organization is all about. If there's one thing I know about football, it's hard.
Who will be the next Raiders head coach to lead the Silver and Black into Allegiant Stadium?
MD is going to introduce you, and then you're going up to the stage you're sitting. Here to introduce the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. You know, come find you guys and get this thing rolling as soon as possible. I'm anticipating that we're going to find that rhythm right here, right now. Everybody's going to hear us.
The Raiders 2025 free agency preview is brought to you by Allegiant, the official airline of the Raiders. Low fares, nonstop flights, only at Allegiant.com. Welcome back to the Raiders 2025 free agent preview. I'm JT with the soon-to-be Hall of Famer, Eric Allen. He's already in, but he's waiting for the gold jacket, and we bring in the voice of the Raiders, Jason Horowitz. Jason, your first time on this platform with this guy to the left of me. How big of a deal is that?
Well, I mean, we've always known he's a Hall of Famer, right? I mean, like, you talk to him, you give him a big hug. I mean, he just everything about him says Hall of Fame, and I am very excited. Are you going to wear the gold jacket at the Torch every week? Though that's what I want to know.
Everywhere. JT's gonna get tired of it, introducing me over and over again. So of course I'm gonna have something.
Wait, you're wrong about that. JT, nobody likes something says with the precursor Hall of Famer more than JT the Brick. There's not a single person that likes to have Hall of Famers in his cell phone more than JT. I think you're good.
I am a great name dropper.
This is my guy. This is my guy.
All right, let's dive into wide receivers, because there's been a lot of wide receivers who have come to Las Vegas really good, and they're no longer here. There's been a lot of turnover at that position here, but now with Jakobi Meyers, what's going to happen with the Raiders under contract, which I think is a strength, Jason. Tucker's under contract here and Jakobi Meyers, but they want to build that room again. So what's your overall feeling about that position group?
I don't think there's a doubt, JT, that the Raiders feel good that they have a 2 and a 3. And Jacoby's had his best year, right? I mean, he had a 1,000-yard season. And it was quiet, too, because Brock Bowers was getting all the attention, and deservedly so. And the first half of the year was about Devontae Adams leaving and then the trade. But Jacoby really has been a solid, better than solid, great receiver in his 2 years with the Raiders. But I think we all would agree that the Raiders do need a number 1. And I don't know, if the Bengals were to franchise and or re-sign T. Higgins, the other best options is the guy from a free agent perspective are all coming off. They're all coming off season-ending injuries, and I think that's something that you'd have to be concerned about if you're John Spytek and Pete Carroll. But there's certainly opportunities out there to bring in another guy or two to make that room really strong.
All right, so we got breaking news. Adam Schefter reported that T. Higgins will be franchise tagged here, and that's an interesting storyline. That is huge because I look at it two ways. First off, it's proving that they're going all in on the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They are. This is the last time. Higgins will not be there after this. So they got him for, I believe, one more year. And, Jason, as you know, they have an opportunity to probably now negotiate something long-term. But after that, when it comes to free agency, Chris Godwin is just a name that makes sense because of John Spytek and that relationship. How much do you think he has left?
I love Chris Godwin. And again, though, he fits into that category of season-ending injury, right? He had I believe it was a dislocated ankle week 6 or week 7 last year. But before that, he was leading the NFL in receptions. And he was on pace to have a record-breaking type season. 120, 125 catches, a ton of yards. The only caveat to that, and the only person in this conversation that would know better than us, is John Spytek. How much of that is because of he was playing opposite of Mike Evans, right? Mike Evans is your 6'5", 11 consecutive 1,000-yard season. He's top 15 in the NFL in touchdown receptions for a career. How much of Chris Godwin's production as a possibility as a 1 is because he was playing opposite Mike Evans? And I don't know the answer to that. I love Chris Godwin. I think he has the ability in this league for years to come to still be a really, really productive player. I wonder how much of his production is because of who he was playing next to.
And that may be okay because we know Jacoby is a fantastic number 2 guy. And right now, going to next season, our number 1 guy is a phenomenal talent in Brock Bowers. He's still, whoever comes in here and hopefully is that game breaker, that guy who can get the ball and have that great yards after catch, be that over-the-top, explosive, impactful player. I think that's the one receiver that we're all looking for, right? That's the kind of guy that we think can kind of explode and make defenses really terrified of him lining up. Do you see anyone else outside of Chris Godwin on this free agency list that can come and provide that kind of spark for our football team?
So I wonder, and again, this is just because of a relationship with the Raiders, who he was once traded from the Raiders,
right,
and requested that. And I wonder, it's been 6 or 7 years at this point. Guys, Amari Cooper still got good football left, and he's not a guy who's coming off a season-ending injury. Amari Cooper is 2 years removed from his career high in yards. He's 3 years removed from his career high in touchdowns. And if you remember with the Browns in 2023, that career high in yards wasn't with one guy. That was with a bad Deshaun Watson, an old Joe Flacco, a rookie Dorian Thompson. There were 5 quarterbacks that the Browns trotted out and made the playoffs, and he was a big reason why. And so I think Amari Cooper still got some football left. Now, again, is he, in this point of his career, is he what you were just talking about, the dominant, definite number 1? I don't know. And 2024 between Cleveland and Buffalo didn't look like that. But I think he's still got something left. So that list, to me, he would be towards the top of that list for me.
Well, the point we're all making here is that Jacoby's really good.
Yeah.
And Brock, I'm happy you said that. He's a 1. T. McMillan out of Arizona, the 6'5", almost 6'6" wide receiver, junior eligible, is a star. And he's a big guy. I think the Raiders need a guy that can run to the corner one-on-one and go get a 50-50 ball, someone you can attack the corner of the end zones. He would be perfect. I just don't know if 6 is too high. He's not going to be there much after 6 or 10. So if the Raiders don't take him early, Jason, he's gone. And then Ohio State's got a really good wide receiver, Burden out of Missouri. But those are first-round guys, and I don't think the Raiders are going to take a first-round wide receiver because of Bowers and Jacoby. Do you see it that way?
Well, you know my philosophy on this, JT, because you said too high. And I've never felt that. And this could be 1, this could be 12, this could be 28. I don't care. If a player you draft turns out to be a really good to great player, you'll never ever look back and say that was too high.
Yes,
ever. And the reason I say that is because you never go back. Draft, JT, of a guy who's an annual Pro Bowler or a borderline Hall of Famer or someone who leads you to the playoffs all the time, where you ever go back and look, well, yeah, he was great, but we could have had great. You never do that. You only do that with guys who stink or don't live up to that thing. So that's why I feel that if a player turns out to be great, you never worry about too high. And here's the other thing you just said, though, about he won't be there after, he won't be there that much farther after 6. At this point last year, right, March, what are we today, 3rd of 2024, nobody thought Brock Bowers would be there at 13. Nobody. Mm-hmm. Most thought he would be gone at 5, 6, or 7, and he wasn't. And so you don't really ever know. I think Teteroa McMillan is outstanding, but there's also a name you left off of that, and that's a guy I know everyone's talking about playing corner, but Travis Hunter is outstanding. Yeah. And obviously, I know we're going to talk about corners here, but if there's the chance to have a guy who could do both in some capacity, your guy.
Man, that would be an amazing find.
2 for
amazing
1.
Get. Yeah,
2 for 1.
To have this young man who is has just great tendencies as far as the receiver part of it, but I just think he's going to be an incredible cornerback in the National Football League. And saying that, let's move over to cornerback. First, let's look at what we have on our football team. And I thought last year at the beginning of the season, Jacorian Bennett had made great strides, done some really good things on the corner, particularly outside guy. He's not someone who's going to travel with the best receiver or go inside, but he did a fantastic job, I thought, early in the year, just taking that next step, being a guy who was targeted often, but really came up with some big-time plays. How did you like the cornerback play of our football team last year?
A couple of things. One, Jacorian Bennett, there was a lot of pressure on him because he didn't have the greatest rookie season. He was picked on a lot.
Yep.
He got starting opportunities in 2023, but he was picked on a lot, and then he didn't start the second part of that season. I thought he bounced back in a major way. He was as good of a corner on a non-winning football team as you could have found last year. And then, unfortunately, obviously, that season came to an end way too short. But there was a clear step for a guy from year one to year two as a fourth-round draft pick from 2023. So I think that's solid. Jack Jones, I think he admits this. There's a lot of unbelievable plays, and there's a lot of how'd that happen play. And so if he can go from that explosive ability in the positive and the negative and bring that balance to make it, heavier weighted in the positive, then that's a major step for him. And then with Nate Hobbs, again, injuries have played a major role for Nate in his career, and he'd be the first to admit that to you. And I think we all agree that when he is playing in the slot, he's as good as you can have in that spot, but the injury part of it is a problem. And obviously he's a free agent.
Yeah, Nate's interesting to me. Here's why. He's a good player, but he's not available often. And he's really important. He plays slot corner. I like guys who can play corner and slot corner. He plays slot. He doesn't play great on the outside, but I believe there's going to be teams interested in him. I think that the elite teams who see him as a free agent are going to say, wow, we got two corners. He could be our slot corner. So I wonder what Pete Carroll is thinking here with Patrick Graham, because Patrick Graham's going to have to go fight for this kid if he wants to be here. I think that communication is going to be key.
Well, first of all, Patrick, remember, the Raiders have all these free agents, right? 18 unrestricted free agents that we'll have to talk about. It's going to come to fruition sooner rather than later, what they actually believe of these guys compared to what we on the outside believe of these guys. But Patrick Graham, I think, will have a major voice in all this, especially with – he knows first year here, not a good defense. They changed a lot of the personnel, and it went from a bad defense to a top 10 defense. And then last year, statistically, outside of the points allowed, was a really good defense too. And Patrick knows which of those guys are the most important. But he also knows that he was able to play defense without Nate Hobbs, to your point. He missed 6 games last year. He missed however many games the year before. And so he knows what Nate means to this defense or what they can do without. And, you pointed out a good football team will bring him in. Amik Robertson, that guy that the Lions brought in last year. Yeah. Obviously, they're different size and they play a little bit differently, but he was big for the Lions secondary. And when they lost him in the playoff game, that pretty much cost them the playoff game.
Yeah. The one thing that we haven't seen that we need to see from this group is turnovers. And that's the most important thing as far as defense is concerned, is being able to get the ball. So whoever is on this list and whoever's coming out, I know Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan, is a pretty highly rated cornerback. It does a phenomenal job at being sticky and getting his hands on the ball. That's kind of the next step for Jacorian or Jack or whoever, is kind of getting the ball and not giving up those big plays. And you mentioned that with Jack. I thought Jack is the kind of guy who was going to take risks. You have to find a way to make sure those risks are measured and you're coming out on top. I think that's the one thing that has to happen with this group, is you have to have some guys who are ball hungry and set that standard really early in training camp.
And I'd also say this, EA, I think, from a if you go last year, 2 years ago, 4th round pick in stride last year in Jacorian Bennett, we had a guy this year who was a 4th round pick who also had a similar rookie season, except it wasn't the beginning of his rookie season. He got all his time on the back end, and that's Cameron Richardson. Right. And so maybe that experience, that valuable experience, and maybe you see him take that step forward, right? The speed is there. The length is there. I think that people would want him to be a little bit more physical and obviously be in the position. But if he takes that experience from his rookie season and makes a Jacorian Bennett type jump, now all of a sudden you got 2 really guys who are coming along, and that's a building block too. A couple of free agents, though, in this conversation, though, EA, and sometimes we connect the dots maybe too much, and we don't really know what the guys feel about them. Carlton Davis was with John Spytek in Tampa, but they traded him to Detroit. So I don't know, what their feelings are about him, but he played well there. He was really helpful for them to turn that defense around early. DJ Reed's going to get a lot of connections because of his time with Pete Carroll in Seattle. Last couple of years with the Jets, opposite of Sauce Gardner. I thought he played really well 2 years ago, came on a little bit too. So those are 2 names I think people are going to look. And then someone we see.
He's an inside guy too. DJ.
Yes, he's an inside
he plays
guy.
inside.
Yes, DJ much more of an inside guy.
Right. And one thing we may want to kind of take account of is we know Pete loves bigger, longer cornerbacks. So, that's an emphasis that you may want to put
Johnson.
on. Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned Will Johnson. Will Johnson's got now. The people have talked about this because we're just coming off the combine. But, Will Johnson's not a guy who's going to turn and run with the fastest receivers in the NFL.
Right.
But he's 6'2" and 200 however many pounds.
Yeah.
And if you look at the tape from when they won the national championship, he was one of the best defensive players on the best defense in college football.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think you would like that too.
Well, I can tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to guess because this free agent preview show.
That's right.
If the Raiders jump in quickly and get Ward or Reed or someone, that whole room's going to look different.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be a starter, and then some of the guys under contract aren't going to be here. And then they're going to start looking at depth positions there. So if they're happy with Jack and they're happy with Chikorian, okay, but there's got to be more depth in that room.
I think
the ranking of
I
that
think
defense.
the comment you made earlier about who's the better player. Can we get better players in here? I think that's really important, and that's what it's going to be about, competition. When we talked to Pete earlier, right after he was signed, he was right here in the studio, and he talked about competition, and there's no doubt about it.
Competition, Pete.
Yeah.
Jason, enjoy March Madness, one of your great gigs out there on top of being the voice of the Raiders. Always good seeing you and talking to you.
Guys, thank you.
Always great catching up with Jason Horowitz. And EA, our next show is going to be a big one. Running backs and linebackers, two hot buttons. The linebackers are hot for me, and you want this running game to get going.
Yeah, for sure. When you talk about linebackers and running backs, the running back is the key for this football team going into next year. And then linebackers, you love those guys because they protect us, so across the corners don't have to tackle.
For Eric Allen, I'm JT. Thanks for joining us. We'll have another show coming up here on YouTube. It's the 2025 Free Agent Preview Shows.